Wisdom is not meant to remain an abstract idea or a set of beautiful words. It must take form in the actions, habits, and character of a person's daily life. The true measure of wisdom is not how eloquently one can speak about it, but how consistently one can live by it. A wise individual demonstrates patience in moments of hardship, holding their composure when emotions threaten to overwhelm. They practice gratitude in times of ease, never allowing comfort to breed arrogance or forgetfulness. They extend forgiveness when wronged, recognizing that bitterness only chains the heart, while mercy frees both the giver and the receiver. These qualities reveal that wisdom is not confined to the mind but is woven into the way a person responds to the unpredictable flow of life. Living a life of wisdom requires constant awareness of the impact of one's choices. A single word spoken in anger can wound for years, while a word spoken with kindness can heal a broken spirit. A moment of recklessness can undo decades of effort, while a moment of restraint can preserve peace and honor. The wise person weighs their actions, not in fear or hesitation, but with a sense of responsibility and foresight. They understand that every decision is a seed planted, and the harvest will come in due time, whether bitter or sweet. This awareness turns even the smallest of actions, like a smile, a gesture of generosity, or a word of encouragement, into reflections of wisdom in practice. A life of wisdom also means embodying consistency, for wisdom is not about occasional brilliance but about steady guidance. It is easy to be patient once, or kind once, or generous once, but true wisdom appears when these virtues are practiced repeatedly until they shape one's character. The wise individual does not wear wisdom as a cloak to impress others but as a second skin, inseparable from who they are. Their presence itself becomes a source of calm, stability, and trust for those around them. People feel safe in their company, inspired by their example, and guided by the quiet dignity with which they carry themselves. Another aspect of living wisely is the legacy one leaves behind. Wisdom is not selfish, it seeks to benefit others, to pass on guidance, to nurture the next generation. The wise do not only live for themselves but think of what impact their life will have after they are gone. Their actions become stories, their choices become lessons, and their lives become living books from which others draw strength. Whether through raising children with strong values, mentoring those in need of guidance, or simply being a source of kindness in a harsh world, they ensure that the light of wisdom continues to shine long after their time has ended. In this way, wisdom becomes more than a private treasure. It becomes a legacy that shapes communities, inspires hearts, and enriches humanity. Humility is the doorway through which wisdom enters the heart, for arrogance creates a barrier that prevents a person from truly seeing, hearing, and learning. The one who believes he already knows everything will close his ears to advice, dismiss the insights of others, and blind himself to the lessons written in every corner of life. A humble person, however, approaches each situation with openness, recognizing that wisdom can be found in unexpected places and from unlikely teachers. The child may teach the adult patience, the poor may teach the wealthy gratitude, the unlettered may reveal truths that scholars overlook. When a person humbles themselves, they admit that their own perspective is limited, and in doing so they become receptive to the treasures of understanding scattered throughout creation. Arrogance narrows vision, humility expands it, allowing one to draw wisdom from every encounter, every relationship, and every experience. True humility is not weakness or self-deprecation, it is a deep awareness of one's dependence on something greater and a recognition that every gift, whether intelligence, strength, or opportunity, is entrusted, not earned by merit alone. This awareness keeps the heart grounded even when praised, and patient even when criticized. The humble person knows that wisdom is not a possession to be displayed but a light to be protected, nurtured, and shared. Such humility softens the ego and makes space for wisdom to reside, for wisdom does not thrive in hearts hardened by pride. Just as water cannot collect on a mountain peak but gathers in the valleys, so too wisdom does not remain with the arrogant but settles in the hearts of the humble. Humility also transforms how we interact with others. A wise person listens more than they speak, not because they lack knowledge, but because they know that wisdom often emerges from attentive silence. They seek to understand before seeking to be understood, and this attitude opens doors to insights that arrogance would have slammed shut. When two people argue, the one filled with pride seeks victory, but the one grounded in humility seeks truth. The former may win the debate but lose respect, while the latter may remain silent yet gain wisdom. Humility shifts the focus from proving oneself to improving oneself, and this constant self-awareness is the soil from which wisdom grows. Moreover, humility allows a person to accept correction without defensiveness. To admit a mistake, to acknowledge ignorance, to accept guidance, these are marks of true strength, not weakness. The arrogant will cling to error for fear of looking small, while the humble will embrace correction for the sake of becoming better. In this way, humility accelerates the journey toward wisdom, while arrogance stalls it. The ability to learn from criticism, to see value in advice even when it stings, is one of the most powerful signs of a heart prepared for wisdom. And just as humility opens the heart to learning, it also makes the possessor of wisdom approachable, for people are drawn not to the boastful but to those who carry knowledge with grace, sincerity, and gentleness. Wisdom does not arrive fully formed in the heart of a person. It is cultivated over time through experience, reflection, and the willingness to learn from both triumphs and mistakes. Every event in life, whether joyful or painful, carries within it a lesson waiting to be uncovered. Some people pass through experiences without extracting any benefit, repeating the same errors again and again, while others pause to reflect, asking themselves what the event was meant to teach them, how they can grow, and how they can avoid falling into the same trap in the future. This habit of reflection transforms ordinary moments into stepping stones toward greater wisdom. It is not the length of one's years that grants wisdom, but the depth of one's reflection on those years. Two individuals may live the same number of days, but one emerges as a wise soul because he mined every moment for meaning, while the other remains shallow because he drifted through life without ever pausing to think. Experience alone is not enough. People often go through hardship yet emerge bitter rather than better. What makes the difference is the lens through which one interprets those hardships. Reflection gives shape to experience, turning pain into growth and mistakes into valuable teachers. A person who loses wealth, for example, may either dwell in regret and resentment, or they may reflect on the impermanence of possessions and the importance of humility and generosity. In the same way, someone betrayed by a friend may either lock their heart away, becoming cynical and distrustful, or they may reflect and learn how to balance trust with caution, compassion with prudence. Every experience can either close the heart or expand it, depending on whether reflection is present. Wisdom also grows when a person learns not only from their own experiences but from the experiences of others. Life is too short to make every mistake yourself. A wise individual observes carefully the patterns of those around them, the rise and fall of communities, the success and failure of leaders, and draws conclusions for their own path. Reflection allows a person to look at history and see it not as distant events but as mirrors that reveal timeless truths about human nature. By studying the lives of others, one can gain decades of wisdom in moments, avoiding pitfalls and embracing virtues without having to endure the same consequences. In addition to reflection, silence and solitude often play a role in nurturing wisdom. When a person steps back from the noise of daily life and gives themselves time to process, their heart begins to recognize lessons that were invisible during the rush of activity. Reflection requires space, a willingness to pause and look inward, to ask not only what happened but what can I learn from what happened. Without this habit, experiences remain scattered fragments, but with it, they become threads woven into the fabric of a wiser soul. Should I continue in the same style and length with key point 5 next? Wisdom is not one-dimensional, it exists on multiple layers that complement and enrich one another. The first layer is the practical, the kind of wisdom that guides a person in the everyday matters of life. It is the wisdom of managing relationships, resolving conflicts, handling responsibilities, and making choices that affect one's career, family, and community. This layer is what allows a person to navigate the ups and downs of life without collapsing under the weight of challenges. It is the ability to speak kindly when provoked, to manage money with foresight, to treat people with fairness, to recognize when to compromise and when to stand firm. Without this type of wisdom, even the most intelligent person may ruin friendships, squander resources, or fall into mistakes that could have been avoided. Practical wisdom is the art of living harmoniously with others, of preserving one's dignity and protecting the dignity of those around. The second layer is deeper and often more difficult to grasp, spiritual wisdom. This is the ability to see beyond the surface of events and perceive a greater meaning behind what happens in life. Where practical wisdom teaches you how to react to situations, spiritual wisdom teaches you how to interpret those situations. It is the wisdom that whispers patience during hardship, reminding you that pain can refine the soul. It is the wisdom that inspires gratitude during times of ease, teaching that blessings are not merely possessions but trusts that carry responsibility. It is the wisdom that urges trust when life feels uncertain, reminding that what appears as a setback may in reality be protection, and what seems like a delay may in truth be preparation for something greater. These two layers of wisdom work hand in hand, and both are necessary for a balanced life. If a person has only practical wisdom, they may become efficient in worldly matters but shallow in understanding, unable to appreciate the unseen dimensions of their experiences. They may know how to build a successful business or manage a household, but without spiritual wisdom they might see no meaning beyond material gain, no lesson beyond immediate results. On the other hand, if someone clings only to spiritual wisdom without practical grounding, they may lose their footing in the realities of life. They might speak of patience, gratitude, and trust, yet fail to handle their responsibilities toward family, community, and society. True wisdom is not in choosing one layer over the other, but in weaving them together so that one strengthens the other. Life itself often forces us to balance these layers. A sudden hardship may demand practical wisdom in how to respond outwardly, while at the same time requiring spiritual wisdom to make sense of the trial inwardly. A moment of success may call for practical wisdom in managing resources, but also spiritual wisdom in humbling the heart so that arrogance does not take root. It is in the combination of these two dimensions that wisdom reveals its full power, shaping not only how we live but how we understand why we live. Stories have always been the language of the heart, the way in which wisdom is carried from one generation to another. Facts and instructions may inform the mind, but stories have a unique power to transform the soul. A story does not just tell you what to do, it shows you how to feel, how to act, and how to see the world through a different lens. When a lesson is wrapped in a story, it becomes memorable, it touches emotions, and it resonates across time and culture. This is why the most enduring teachings in human history are almost always given through stories rather than plain instructions. Children sit at the feet of their grandparents not because they want to hear dry lectures, but because they are captivated by the tales that carry hidden gems of guidance. In the same way, communities and civilizations pass on their deepest values not through statistics or rules, but through narratives that embody courage, sacrifice, loyalty, justice, and compassion. The power of stories lies in their ability to create connection. A piece of advice may seem abstract or even irrelevant, but when it comes alive through the struggles of a character, through the details of a journey, or through the trials of a hero, suddenly it feels personal. People may forget what they are told directly, but they rarely forget the story that moved them to tears, or made them laugh, or gave them hope in the midst of despair. Wisdom travels on the wings of storytelling because it engages not only the intellect but also the imagination. It allows us to live many lives, to learn from mistakes we never committed, and to gain insight from experiences that we could never live ourselves. This is why a story of a farmer, a traveler, or even a child can teach more about patience, gratitude, and humility than hours of formal instruction. Another remarkable aspect of stories is that they speak to people of all backgrounds and all levels of understanding. A single story can give one type of lesson to a child and a deeper, more complex lesson to an adult. It has layers of meaning that unfold depending on who is listening and what stage of life they are in. This is the beauty of wisdom embedded in narrative. It is not limited by time, culture, or education. It transcends boundaries and speaks directly to the human condition. A wise story does not expire, it continues to offer new insights each time it is revisited. A person may hear the same story at 10 years old, at 30, and at 60, and each time they will walk away with a different form of wisdom suited to their circumstances. Stories also carry wisdom because they are easy to remember and share. A complicated lecture may be forgotten as soon as it ends, but a story can be retold again and again, spreading its message far beyond the original setting. In this way, stories are like seeds planted in countless hearts, each one growing in its own soil, producing fruits that may look different yet come from the same source. This enduring nature of stories ensures that wisdom does not die with one generation but continues to live, adapt, and inspire long after the storyteller is gone. When we speak about wisdom, many people assume it is identical to knowledge, but in reality, the two are very different. A person may possess vast amounts of knowledge, facts, and information, yet still make foolish decisions that harm themselves or others. Knowledge is like raw material, it can be accumulated, stored, and displayed. Wisdom, on the other hand, is the art of using that material properly. It is about knowing when to speak and when to remain silent, when to act and when to wait, when to push forward and when to step back. It is about balance, discernment, and foresight. Wisdom is not about how much you know but about how deeply you understand the consequences of your words and actions. One man may memorize hundreds of books, but if he cannot control his temper in a moment of anger, what has that knowledge truly given him? Another may know very little, but if he applies his knowledge at the right moment in the right manner, he may surpass the learned man in actual wisdom. Wisdom is also connected to the ability to see the bigger picture. Knowledge can sometimes trap us in the details, focusing on the small pieces of a puzzle, while wisdom reminds us to step back and recognize the entire painting. For example, a person might know every technical rule in a debate but lacks the wisdom to realize that winning the argument could damage a relationship permanently. The wise person sees beyond the immediate victory, he sees the long-term impact. In this way, wisdom restrains us from using knowledge destructively. It refines our impulses and aligns them with higher values. This is why, throughout history, societies have admired elders, not merely because of their age, but because years of experience often produce this type of maturity. Wisdom teaches that life is not only about being right, but about being righteous in how one behaves. Another aspect of wisdom lies in timing. Knowledge gives you the answer, but wisdom tells you when and how to deliver that answer. Imagine a doctor who knows the correct treatment for an illness but prescribes it at the wrong stage. Instead of healing, it could cause harm. Similarly, in human interactions, sharing the right words at the wrong time can worsen a situation. Wisdom is that subtle awareness of timing, the sensitivity to context, and the emotional intelligence to gauge what people can bear to hear at any given moment. A parent may know what is best for their child, but wisdom teaches them to introduce guidance gently, gradually, and in a way that nurtures growth rather than crushing the spirit. Wisdom also elevates our relationship with knowledge itself. Without wisdom, knowledge can breed arrogance, as a person becomes proud of how much they know. Wisdom humbles the heart, reminding us that no matter how much knowledge we gain, it is always incomplete, always limited, always in need of refinement. The wise individual understands that knowledge should not inflate the ego but should instead cultivate service, compassion, and responsibility. Wisdom is what transforms knowledge into a means of benefiting creation rather than a tool for self-promotion. It softens the sharp edges of information and makes it nourishing, like a fire that is controlled and provides warmth instead of one that rages out of control and causes destruction.